podcast. I hope you guys are having a wonderful day. Today is the very first episode that we're putting on Restream. So, guys, give us feedback. We have a wonderful guest in Matt Davis. Matt Davis is not your typical attorney. He doesn't like golf. He thinks other attorneys have some serious issues, and we'll talk about it. But the word of the day that we're going to use is stodgy or stodgy. I got to be able to pronounce it correctly. But I came across Matt through a matching service, and his profile just spoke to us and spoke to me, and I needed to bring him on. Matt, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks. I am excited to be here and just chat and see what we can come up with brilliant today.
So I know you've been practicing for 30 plus years or close to 30 years, but what got you into the industry initially?
Well, okay. So I was actually a pretty good college student, which after my performance in high school was really remarkable to my parents. And I thought I was going to go be a history professor. And my dad, in sort of his coarse but direct way, sat me down and he said, "Listen, let me make this real clear to you. Um, I will pay for you to go to OU Law School, or you're off the family tit." And I mean, he was just kind of that blunt. And I was, 21 years old, and I had a history degree. And I said, "Well, Dad, I think I'll go to OU Law School," and I did. And I was there actually. For those of you old enough to remember, Anita Hill was our contracts professor, and
Wow.
second year of law school, all the Clarence Thomas stuff happened, and I mean the whole law school was just a circus for about 2 3 weeks, and so yeah, that is literally how I got into law, and I think I'd always thought, yeah, why not? Uh, I come from a professional family. I really come from old farm stock, so to speak. And my great grandfather presaged Willie Nelson and told all his kids to become doctors, lawyers, and such. And so I come from a family of doctors and lawyers and so on. So it was kind of natural for me. So
So I know what OU stands for, but what the
oh
audience potentially not. I know where you're at. So why don't you tell everybody what
yeah,
OU is?
yeah, that's Oklahoma. So University of Oklahoma, which is down in Norman. I live in Enid, which is my hometown. I came back here after deciding not to be a Washington lawyer. So I tell my Arizona friends, I know you're there. That's like living in Flagstaff, right? You have to have a point of reference.
Well, Flagstaff is about a 3-hour drive north of me, and it's yes, it's a point of reference. But at the end of the day, we all have geography issues, so we'll deal with it. Uh, with with you being an attorney for so long, we've had a great conversation prior to, and you have a great sense of humor, not stuffy like a typical attorney.
Well, thank you.
What what gets you through? Well, first of all, let's start your journey. You went to law school because the parents said you'll be off the tit if you
Yeah.
don't. What transitioned after that, and how did your career kind of play out? And then we'll get into what you're currently
Well,
doing today.
I thought I was going to be a Washington lawyer, and I went and got a master's degree at Cornell in basically energy economics. And then I went to work for Department of Energy in DC. And that was, now there's something kind of interesting there because even back in 94, I got hired in the secretary's office. And then I quickly got shipped to geothermal because I didn't like the idea when they said, we're going to turn all of America to renewable energy by 2004, right? So this was 28 years ago now. And I'm like, guys, this just isn't going to happen. But by the way, that's what we're living right now. And it's not working very well because they still think we can do it, which we can't. Would be nice, but we can't. Anyway, so I was in DC for a couple of years and I thought I was going to stay there. I thought I would just have a career, practicing energy law, and one day I had lunch with a cousin of mine, 10 years older than me, similar career path. I mean, literally worked for a senator like I had, and then he went to Kansas law. And I walked out of there and I was looking around those buildings. They're 10-story buildings downtown DC, and I'm just like, man, I just don't want to do this. And I called my girlfriend, who is now my wife. She was a TV producer in LA. And I said, hey, let's move back to our hometown and, have a bunch of kids. And, 26 years later, here we are. And I think we have 5 kids, but, it's hard to keep a steady count. So,
And how many of the kids are attorneys?
Zero. Now, the oldest one's
Wow.
just 25. I just call them by unit numbers because it's easy to remember. Unit 2, yeah, maybe she'll go to law school. 3 probably will. And then 4, he's not academic. I don't think he'll, but 5 was talking about going to law school last night. She's 12. So she's my little Ethiopian baby. And she's a piece of work. I'll tell you what.
So do you want any of your kids to become attorneys and grow up and be one?
Um, it's interesting. Law is a very difficult and challenging and stressful profession, particularly for the attorneys that really care about their clients, and there's some that don't. I mean, and that's goes across the professions. I do think law attracts a lot of people with unsavory attitudes and a lot of obnoxious characters. I mean, I know I went to law school with them, and I've for the last 25, 30 years. So, it would be good, but it, and I practiced law here in my hometown for 20 years, just county seat law practice, doing a lot of, family law, criminal law, just taking care of my clients. And that's pretty rewarding. And the other thing too is, if you come to a smaller city and you show up and work hard, you can make a really good living, and it stands out really quickly. And the bar, the attorneys tend to be pretty collegial, and if you don't behave yourself and play nice, so to speak, I mean, you can play tough,
Uh-huh.
but if you don't play fair or you're just a jerk or obnoxious, you get treated like a dog. I mean, there's a few attorneys here that everybody just treats like crap because, that's what you're going to get back from them, and word gets around.
So I've got to ask the obvious question. Why, you said it earlier, is, why do you have these type of characters that are in your profession that are just jerks and really don't
Oh,
care and really seem like they're, a notch above everybody else?
yeah, a law license is a license to be that. I mean, you can get in litigation. And I mean, I don't really go to court very frequently. I literally had to put on a suit 2 days ago, and I was really shocked about it. And it's been a year because I mean, I had a midlife crisis and started a law firm. So I mainly run the law firm, and I have just a few clients left. And this guy, he's setting hearings without calling me, even though I'm sending him emails going, hey, if we're going to set a hearing, please give me a call so that we can do it together so that we don't have to reschedule. This guy set 2 hearings without calling me just to be a jackass. And, I'm copying the judge in, bitching about it. And, the judge is paying attention to the fact that he's just being intentionally discourteous to be an ass, and then is just mocking me and smirking about it. And that there's just people that act that way, and they think that oh, we'll go hide behind the profession to just be jerks. And And I think there's a selection bias because they can get away with it practicing law. And by the way, I mean, I know some lawyers that are just horrible, horrible that way. And there is a slice of the public that thinks that having a lawyer that just acts like a jackass is is effective representation. And
No.
no, it just it runs up the cost. And
Yep.
um yeah, and 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 it's, I mean, it's horrible. And now the funny thing is, there's one of these guys, and I I have said the only thing worse than being on the other side of a case with them is having them on your side of the case.
Wow.
Because this one particular jerk, I had to try a jury trial against Bank of America, and um, it was just horrible working with that guy. We had aligned clients, so they're they're just there. And um, yeah, it's there's a selection bias for it.
It just seems like there's a larger percentage of them in the law industry, and it's sad. I mean, you're right. When you have that type of an attorney on your side or even against you, it runs the bill up because ultimately it just causes more trouble, and then the billable hours go up. Been there, done that, and at a point in my life, I too wanted to go to law school, but then I thought, man, I can't be that type of person. It's just not it's not how I'm wired. I
Yeah,
wanna do things fairly.
and fortunately, you don't have to do it all that often. Um, you most of the attorneys you work with, and by the way, in a smaller market, you know who they are. In a bigger market, you got to wait until you know if the other side is a jerk or is causing trouble. Because yeah, the best way to handle the case is to have the lawyers work together to efficiently resolve it.
Yes.
And yeah, absolutely. I mean, I just got a really nice one done. This was kind of interesting. I mean, I was fighting with a law firm out of South Texas. The case ultimately ended up in arbitration in Florida.
And
And
this is the one we talked about on our pre-call, wasn't it? Where the guy was being a real, a-hole to you?
no, 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 because these were women lawyers. Yeah,
Oh,
these
okay.
these
Go for it. I love this story. I'll love to hear a story.
yeah, no, and these were women lawyers. And man, I mean, we were just hard at it. We were just thrashing each other, and politely, but throwing all sorts of punches. And at the end of the day, we got to the settlement table and did a mediation with one of the Houston judges. And we settled it, and the judge was absolutely astonished. He's like, "You guys just settled that case in like 2 hours," and it was a pretty big case. And I said, "Yeah, well," and I said, "Well, Rhonda and I've been, we know where we all stand, and we know that we'll size each other up, and we know somebody's going to lose, and it could be either of us." And but at the end of that, I we were circulating all the settlement paperwork between our clients. And I said in my email, I didn't mind saying it in front of my client, which is a big national corporation. I said, props to you guys because you fought hard and you fought fair. And by the way, call me because I need some local representation down there. And on a particular issue. And my clients, this was one of the I was a Houston manager, and he knows that because we've worked together a long time. And he's like, "Oh yeah, we want, when you're being the upper level counsel, we want to know who the real good, hard fighting but fair lawyers are, because those are who we want you hiring to help us out in particular issues."
So, can you also back up in that story about the younger attorneys that you were fighting against in Texas? I think it was Austin or Dallas. Do you remember that
Oh
one?
yeah, yeah, that moron.
Yeah,
Um,
I want to hear that story because you were just starting to go back and forth with them, but you didn't finish it up. So I'm interested to see how that turned out.
oh, well, I think, there's okay, this, look, I'm Gen Z, so let's do just some intergenerational thrashing while we're at it. Yeah, but you can't go boomer to me because I'm Gen Z, okay? And but by the way, I kind of joke because I'm an Okie and we have a little brother complex to all Texans, right? Because
Yes.
Texans are, they are not aware that we exist, but we have a rivalry going with them that they're not aware of. And I joke though, sort of joke. There's, when you really want to get deal with somebody that's difficult, it's a Texas millennial lawyer. That's like the trifecta, right? And anyway, this guy just kept picking a fight with me, and I'm like, dude, I've represented this company for 16 years. I have tried this case hundreds of times. And you're serious, right? You are serious. You are about to get your butt handed to you so bad. And he's like, nope, and he's making all these ridiculous arguments, trying to get us for what we call in the law business incidental or consequential damages,
Hmm.
which means in short form that somehow these are like sort of long far removed damages like, oh, well, we couldn't do our production because you breached contract. I'm like, first of all, we didn't breach the contract, and that has nothing to do with your production. And even more importantly, dingbat, there's an there's a clause in the contract that says each party agrees to waive incidental or consequential damages. And this moron is picking a fight. And by the way, this is a huge national firm that is billing their clients 3 times more per hour for their senior partner or for the partner who's my vintage. Okay. We're peers at the bar. She's billing 3 times more than I am. And a 5 year out associate is billing twice as much as I am. Right.
Wow.
Yeah, it was so obnoxious. And, ultimately, we tried that case and I ran the numbers on them. I got everything I asked for. But in the middle of all that, everybody had attorney's fees claim, and their attorney's fees claim was for twice as much as what ours is. And they had 2 attorneys try the case. And that was pretty abusive, and it was really stupid advice to their client because after they paid the attorney's fees, the cost, the interest, they probably paid 3 or 4 times what we would have settled the case for.
So I guess I got to ask the question, is that just the large entity or their client just not caring and not doing the due diligence, or it's just flat out stupidity?
It was just stupid, and they think, oh, some big law firm is gonna, you know, it's a big national firm, and that some people think that that's just really effective to have law firms like that, and there's a place for them in some big corporate representation, but you know we fight with them all the time. I mean, I know who all the big law firms are in all the markets that we operate in, and it doesn't phase us. I mean, it's constant fight with those guys.
But the only people that win in these type of battles are the attorneys because they're getting
Yeah,
paid.
yeah, absolutely,
So
absolutely.
I got to ask the question, and then we'll get into your midlife crisis. I think that's a great conversation too. Is if you're in one of these types of situations and you're not a big corporation, how does one effectively somewhat manage their costs when it comes to these type of situations? When I say this is, and I'll give you an example. I mean, I used to own a construction company and the operator, we were part owners, and the operator basically had some issues. And so we basically said, we're going to divorce you. And that meant, legal proceedings and so forth. He decided to go hire a big name firm, which was trying to run up the bill. I have a firm that's more boutique like yourself that makes sense and just wanted to get done in, let's call it a day. His attorney had to get his billable hours in. So he was trying to run up the bill and then stick us with the numbers. And I said, no, that's not how it's going to work. We had to go back and forth to get that done. But ultimately, we didn't have to go to trial, but we were able to, get the judge to agree. How do you is there any way to play that in life and business? Because it becomes stupid.
Yeah. There's a variety of strategies. It's get the judge to order mediation, or and that's good. We are a big fan of arbitration, and arbitration in short form is private court. And so a lot of our operating agreements and whatnot that we write for our clients will have arbitration clauses. So I mean, Jamie's my right hand and paralegal office manager. You get the idea. And
Uh-huh.
we got most of what we do anymore is arbitrations, and we ended up in district court. That's when I was talking about having to put on a suit, because somebody was trying to weasel out of the arbitration. And man, we were just like, this is so tedious. We're subpoenaing witnesses, we're tracking them down, and we're filing all these motions and this and that. And I'll tell you what, I mean, arbitration proceedings can be so fast, and so you 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 don't have all this big discovery.
Mhm.
And I mean, I'll try a $500,000 case in arbitration and maybe have to answer 10 discovery questions instead of 30, and put up with days of depositions. I mean, that's nice. And I mean, we're good at it and we move it fast. So, arbitration's a good idea. The bottom line is there's a variety of strategies, and or just ignore them a lot of the time, when somebody's being obnoxious. But sometimes you can't. I mean,
Yeah.
Ashley and I have got a case pending up in Nebraska, and the other lawyer just will file anything and everything. And um, he's just obnoxious. And I I we got it's the case is coming in stages, and I tried it in Omaha a couple years ago. Went all the way to the Nebraska Supreme Court. After that, we won, and now we've got a hearing. And he's like the Energizer Bunny of obnoxiousness.
And the again, the only people are winning are the attorneys in this, and it's
Yeah,
just crazy. It's ah, I could
and
get on a soapbox on that.
oh yeah, and I'm having to answer to my managing attorney out of Boston on that, and he gets it. I'm like, look, this is, and he looks at the file and he's like, I see what's going on. You're not the one filing all the motions. Like, no. So anyway,
So let's get into your life story. You have a midlife crisis, and you say that you're going to start a law firm.
yeah, it's kind of joking and kind of not, but that's what happened. I was ultimately had a really sophisticated marketing strategy, in that I was not in the phone book and I didn't have a web page, and I was just practicing law out of my house, because I had this big spare room, and I had a book of clients that just kept coming back to me. And but I did have one client that was 40% of my business, right? And
Mhm.
that's not healthy. That's a real vulnerability. I got 5 kids at home and I'm the sole breadwinner of the family. That's a really bad place to be when you have zero marketing acumen. And I just didn't have to have it, right?
Mhm.
And I sort of incidentally ran into a group called How to Manage a Small Law Firm, and they're a law firm coaching company, and I really am grateful to them. And I went to one of their conferences, and they said, "Hey, why don't you start a business law firm?" Ultimately, they said, "Why don't you start a law firm?" I said, "Well, okay." Then I talked to some people, other lawyers, and it's like, okay, and started coaching with these guys. And they said, well, you know more about business law. I taught it at the college than, you know, any of the people we work with, why don't you start a small business law firm? And I said, I'd love to. Let's do it. And what are we up to? 12 or 13 attorneys. We're about to hire again. And so we're in this small market, and we just went to Oklahoma City. So which is, an hour and a half away. And we started growing there. And then we said, well, let's go to Tulsa, which is an hour and a half away. Then we said, well, let's go to Wichita, which is an hour and a half away. And then Kansas City and Dallas. And we just learned how to operate spread out. And we learned how to hire great lawyers that are problem solvers, not problem bringers, that really have the skill set and the passion to help small business people. As we say, our first core value is believe and protect their dreams. And it's really fun. It's really rewarding to see these businesses grow and prosper and try and keep them out of trouble.
And that's one refreshing and two not very often heard from an attorney or a firm.
Yeah, well, in law school, we are taught to deal with issues, right? And that means deal with problems. And I come at things maybe a little bit differently. My mother, who was the only woman in her med school class, then she ended up in St. Louis doing her residency. And then she and my dad both came back here to our hometown. And mom was, she did a lot of surgery for an OBGYN. I think you would say a lot of surgery. I don't know. I specifically I stayed out of medicine because my mother she always wore glasses like this. And she would come home, we'd be having dinner, and she'd say stuff like, I took a tumor out of a woman today about the size of that roast beef. Like, oh, God, Mom. And she was just graphic about it. But she was in the 70s, right on the cutting edge of breast cancer screening, right? Mm-hmm. Okay, let's, as doctors, as professionals, let's get ahead of the problems. What a novel idea, right? And that idea stuck with me. And I think it's really important. And then working with my clients, I've got these clients. As a matter of fact, we're meeting here in a couple hours, transferring the business. But these are just small town kids that basically own the small town, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, just a fantastic American success story. And we've been together so long, we're like peas and carrots. But I wrote about this in my first book, The Art of Preventing Stupid. And they, this was kind of a critical change to me. This was 12 years ago or so. And we're talking, and they said, they had some outside firm come in with this from Chicago with this big shebang. This is how you protect your business with this complicated structure and this and that. And I was looking at it, and I was talking to the accountant, and we're like, this is nonsense, And ultimately, I just go, how much insurance do you guys have? And they said, I don't know, a couple $1,000,000, maybe 3, maybe 2, I can't remember. And I go, guys, what in the hell are you thinking? You have 30 loaded down Ford 550s out on the road doing service calls. And I have seen the local hospital run up $700,000 in medical bills after a car wreck.
Yeah.
And $2 million is not going anywhere on that, right?
Oh, yeah.
And, okay, we went out, we got insuranced up. Well, guess what happened 6 months later?
Someone had a car accident.
Yeah. And one of our drivers is going down a country highway, no shoulders, and by our standards, it's a pretty hilly road. And he he hydroplanes and he goes down the side of a semi like this, and he comes out the back into the other lane and hits a hits a mom and dad in a brand new, literally driving it home from the lot, brand new uh, pickup truck,
Oh, wow.
and two kids in the back. And mom and dad didn't make it.
Oh, gosh.
Yeah, I mean, horrible, horrible deal. And um, yeah, I mean, and by the way, my client is over in one of the big towns with his chest cut open, having thoracic surgery. He
Oh,
didn't even
Lord.
know about the wreck for 2 weeks.
Wow.
And
That's horrible. I mean,
yeah, but you know, yeah, I mean, it's horrible. It's just sort of gross to talk about. And I don't know how I got off on it. Well, in the preventative sense, and 2 weeks later, I drive out to the country, and they live out 35 miles outside of town here, and knock on the door, and he answers. He's a big old boy, um, and then he's pretty surprised to see his lawyer on Sunday afternoon, and he's going back to work the next day. And I sit down and I tell him what happened, and he's got tears running down his face, and I say, the first question he asks me is, are the kids going to be okay? I said, the kids are healthy and we got enough insurance to make sure they're taken care of forever. So to speak, right? You can't ever replace that.
can't replace family. No.
Yeah. Um, and, ultimately we talk about it, and um, he, he says, is the company going to be okay? And I said, yeah, it's going to be okay. And, out of that tragedy, um, I can look back and I'm like, okay, it was that intervention on the level where we did that in a preventative way really, was able to do the best thing we could, which is be able to provide for those kids and also protect the company. And um, you know, that's why I wrote the Art of Preventing Stupid book, is really to start to teach people how you can protect your business, because it's it's like with the discussion about the insurance. I said, guys, we've got that many people out on the road. It's not a question of if somebody's going to get an accident. It's just a question of when and how
Yeah.
bad it's going to be.
Yeah.
And I was kind of a smartass, which I know is pretty common, with the title of that book, because it's like, guys, most of the problems we get into in business are unforced errors. Okay. And the reason me and my firm as lawyers have experience with that is we see it, and we see the same errors, the same mistakes come in time after time after time. And what if, like my mom doing breast cancer screening, what if we would teach people how to prevent those, and how to systematically get in front of the problems, so that we, so that they're not just sitting in the problem pit, and instead, as business owners, they're staying in the opportunity zone. Because you're either in one or the other. You're either
Yep.
dealing with an opportunity or you're dealing with a problem.
Very
And
true.
so I'm really passionate about that. And it's really, and by the way, too, it's really fun for my lawyers, my team, to work with people who are doing stuff and who are building things, and to help keep them out of trouble. Right now, am I talking too much?
No, not at all. Like,
Okay,
this is your story. This is what we want to hear. I mean, the other
no,
side of an attorney that is not looking for the dollars and being greedy.
well, by the way, I mean, it's not everything I'm saying. It's not entirely altruistic because, by the way, when you can get in front with clients and help teach them and help prevent their problems and help keep things streamlined and keep them in the opportunity zone, you're adding a ton of value, right? And
Yeah.
and so, it's like um, Ashley, who's my right hand lawyer and naturally lives in Portland, Oregon, right? We we she's just calling me. We're doing the general counsel work for this little startup company, and they and we've so we've worked with them through all this, really in with this spirit and this nature of work. And these guys are um, they're geologist nerds. I mean, they're like hyperspatial reservoir geologists, blah blah blah, out of the oil business. And they discovered, or well, yeah, discovered's maybe too strong of a word. They identified, some other people knew it was there too, but they identified an extension of this oil field in South Arkansas that we're not talking about oil now, we're talking about lithium because the
Oh,
lithium is dissolved in the salt water down in the oil field,
hmm.
right? Okay, so,
Had
and
no
this is
idea.
not crazy new idea. So you go 85 miles that way, you start to hit the iodine fields, and a lot of oil wells will produce salt water, and that's, by the way, what was causing the earthquakes is the reinjection of that. But all the iodine in your salt is pulled out of wells out here, 85 miles that way. All the helium that you use is pulled out of gas wells out by Amarillo. Okay.
Hmm.
Now, these guys just figured out, hey, here's a bunch of lithium. And, that's been really exciting to do and work with those guys. And it's been a great account for us. And, we've kept them out of all sorts of problems. And it was fun. We did what we call the Disney World maneuver, which, I don't know if you guys know this, but when Walt Disney bought Disney World, he set up all these little companies
Yeah,
and went in and
LLC.
bought all the land before anybody knew what was going on, and then merges it all in. That's what we did, and got all the leases. And we're getting ready to. Ashley's just calling me. We're getting ready to go to market with this company, and it's been really, really, really fun to do.
That's awesome. I mean, but see, that's something you don't get to see from a typical attorney. You see them just hitting the billable hours and that's it. It's always coming in the end when you're in trouble instead of being proactive, they're being, reactive to the situation. Then you're stuck with that. And I wish there was more of you out there. I mean, really, I mean, I have to say we have a good outside general counsel. They're into tech and they're into real estate. They're into things that we're in. But they started as a very small boutique, and now he's grown. I think he's close to 12 or 14 attorneys too, and he spread across the country also. But we started. I can remember when I started with him, it was just him and his brother was going to law school and he was helping him out and just going one at a time. And now he's got all these other different attorneys, and it's like that's cool to see that because they truly care and they want to be in front of stuff. It's just you guys are rare. It's just you guys are a rare commodity.
Well, thanks, and I hope it's becoming more common. Um, and by the way, we've got, of course, the Art of Preventing Stupid book is what is a good resource. And I'm not really hawking the book because I'm not trying to get on any stages, but I think it's a good resource. It's kind of the tip of the iceberg of what we do with our general counsel clients. Um, and by the way, we still do traditional law, and a lot of it. But then we're like, hey guys, by the way, this is how we could have kept you out of this. And but the main idea we get down to is a three-step process. Number one, let's brainstorm smart and brainstorm in insightfully about what can go wrong, because you're probably familiar with SWOT analysis,
Oh
which is,
yeah.
what's our strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats, and let's throw it up on a whiteboard, and then you come up with a few things. But this question, what are our threats, is not an insightful question. That's not a smart question. Now, what catastrophes can hit my marketing? That's a better question, right?
Oh yeah.
Or you know, what am I ignorant about my competition? Right? That's an insightful question. Or, we talk about all your problems coming either from catastrophes, your own ignorance, or your own ineptitude. And ineptitude just means you're slacking off. You know you're supposed to be doing it and you're not. And we use those three categories to frame questions either through the business immune system report, which is what the art of preventing stupid is about, or we also, and that's more systemic about your business, or we have another more subjective report called the Strong Protected Business Report. And that's the title of my next book, which I haven't decided when to publish, is just the Strong Protected Business. Because I'm busy running a law firm. And but those reports help frame really insightful questions that then frame up your vulnerabilities. Because one of our taglines is deal with your vulnerabilities so you can capitalize on your opportunities. Because the people that do are the companies that are the A players on the field, because they're not making stupid unforced errors, right? They're the guys that get the opportunities. And okay, so first thing is brainstorm smart. Brainstorm with structure. Brainstorm systemically and or subjectively about your business. All this is on davisbusinesslaw.com in the resources tab, all the forms. And then number two, you got to prioritize. And we talk about prioritizing, sort of improved, so to speak, the Eisenhower matrix. And what we do is we talk about likelihood and seriousness as the axes. Because, some problems are so remote, you're not going to get hit by a tornado outside of Phoenix.
No.
Right? We might.
Yes.
We live in Enid, Oklahoma. I mean, they're just, it's a spectator sport around here. And literally, I mean, you'll see back in the day, the law firm I worked for was the attorney for the movie Twister, because they filmed it right over here.
Oh, wow.
But the you prioritize, and if it's serious and active threat versus a unserious and unlikely threat, you do the matrix and you frame them up and then develop a plan to deal with it. And by the way, we work with a lot of business coaches that like to use our stuff, because we're basically looking at the negative side of, what can go wrong. Let's deal with the threats and weaknesses. You guys go deal with the strengths and opportunities, right? But our job, again, as attorneys, is to deal with your vulnerabilities. And it's better if we do it up front. And then ultimately, okay, so step three is you get to a plan. And we focus on three things. Number one, get the easy list done. If it takes you 5 minutes to deal with a, medium, unlikely vulnerability, just do it, right? Just get it off your list. Partly just because it's getting the momentum going. And, momentum's something to be said for that. Well, they say the hardest thing is getting started.
Getting started. Yep. Taking that first step.
Yeah. And then two, we talk about, Stephen Covey talks about rocks. What are your projects? What do you have to get done? So, and, put that on your list. And that dovetails right into strategic planning, whether you're doing EOS or scaling up, or I've been talking to these guys who've developed a new system called Pinnacle, which is really cool. And then three, I thought this was I was kind of proud of myself about this, is identify the habits that you need to put in place or need to get rid of. And I think that's a really important part of building a strong protected business is being serious with yourself about, because that's different than projects ultimately. And, I know the habits thing has been pretty pronounced in literature recently from Atomic Habits. And there's a couple, great books out there about it. And I'm sure that influenced my thinking. But, you know, the strong protected businesses are the ones that have that, have the good habits and or have gotten rid of the bad habits. So, I mean, I'm soapboxing right now, but I'm really passionate about teaching businesses how to stay out of trouble, to deal with their vulnerabilities, so they can capitalize on their opportunities. Because it's cool to see, man. I mean, it's cool to see these people living the American dream
Yep.
and making something out of their lives and changing their families' lives for generation. And not so much maybe that they are going to have multi-generational wealth, but that they've now taught their kids that this is possible.
And they can come up with something on their own and start generating and creating entities or businesses there. I mean, it's a snowball effect, and I'm with you on that because unfortunately, with today's instant gratification piece with social media, and we could go down a whole nother rabbit hole with that,
Mhm.
is the hard work piece is gone. They think if you put out a TikTok or an Instagram or a YouTube short, whatever, that it's supposed to go viral and you're supposed to be a millionaire overnight, and that just it doesn't work that way. You have to uh, I joke about it is I'm an 8-year overnight success. I've had 2 failed businesses, 25 years in corporate America, and corporate America didn't teach me how to fish. It kept me fat and happy. So I failed at 2 businesses on my own because I didn't know how to fish. So I had to relearn how to fish or actually not relearn, learn how to fish. And that's life. We all have failures. You just got to get back up and move forward.
Mhm. Yeah, yeah, amen to that. I'm laughing because one of the books I always talk about is Harvey Mackay's Swim with the Sharks Without Getting Eaten Alive. And one of the great lines he's got in there is, I can't believe how stupid I was 2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
And I mean, I feel that way every dang day. I mean, because, we're, I mean, I know my body of law, right? But running a business is a different particularly growing one and particularly scaling one. And you said 8 years, and people will tell you it's 5 to 7 years to make a business
Yeah.
successful and sustaining. And I say,
Mhm.
don't count on the 5, count on the 7.
Count
And
on count on the 8, count on the rest of it, and even with the 8 years going, we're not sustainable yet because I just added another mix last year to a nonprofit. So now I'm learning the nonprofit world, which if you haven't been, if you don't see it, I'm not conventional. And people say, you can't run a nonprofit like a for profit. Sure, I can. Why can't I? What stops me from doing that? Because ultimately, the nonprofit is for us, and our clients are unbankable. They can't get credit, so we have to teach them the basics of credit and crawling and getting through that industry. Nonprofits don't do that. Nonprofits just want to push you through a system, get you to check the boxes and move on. I want to educate people. I want to be able to give them the tools to succeed in life. And people say, "Oh, you can't do that." Sure, I will. Watch me.
yeah, you can. Um, Incidentally, do you know that Goodwill Industries is a nonprofit corporation?
Sure do.
Yeah, yeah,
I I I I've moved many times in my life and I've donated a lot of things and get the donation cards and back in the day they used to fill it out for you. Now it's like you're on your own.
yeah.
Yeah, just give you an empty card and that's it and there you go. So it's businesses, like you said, it's running a business and scaling it is totally different than, going after a passion or like you said, practicing law. Now you've got a business and now you have an entity that you have to pretty much manage on a daily basis and you have to be an attorney, you got to be a leader, you got to be a manager, you got to be a cheerleader. I mean, there's so many different hats you have to wear, but at the end of the day, as long as you're doing something that you're passionate about and that fire stays there, you'll continue to flourish and grow. But once again, like you said, you got to be prepared for those instances where you're looking at your weaknesses all the time and being able to adjust or get rid of them, because ultimately that'll be your demise.
Yeah, yeah, and the businesses that do that, man, they just kill it. They
Yeah.
just absolutely kill it. So
Well, Matt, it has been wonderful to have you on it. We've been 50 minutes here, and I could say we could keep on talking. Before we end up, where are you guys? What states are you practicing? Are you practicing in all 50 states, or are you guys specific to certain states?
no, we just operate mainly on what we call the South Plains. So we've got office in Kansas City, so that's Kansas City or Kansas and Missouri. We do a little bit in Colorado, and we'll probably go to Colorado here in the next year or so, and then Arkansas, Oklahoma, and Texas, or as we like to call it, Baja, Oklahoma.
I like that.
They do not they are not amused at all with that comment. So
I'm sure they're not. I'm sure that that gets them a little hot under the collar. Where can people find you? What's your
yeah,
website?
just go to davisbusinesslaw.com. And again, we've got a lot of the stuff I was talking about in forms up on the resources tab. And my email is mdavis@davisbusinesslaw. If anybody just wants to pick my brain or ask me a couple questions.
That's great, and I'll put all the I'll put your information and your website in the show notes so people can get a hold of you guys.
Sounds great. Hey, I appreciate it. It was really fun being on.
Thank you, Matt, for coming on. It's been entertaining, but also enlightening that there is a good attorney in this world.
Got it. Thank you. And it's now Taco Thursday, so I'm going to get some tacos.
Have a good one.